Yo, why does everybody want me to keep watching this show called One Piece? It's way too long. I mean, 1,171 episodes, bro. Are we serious? Man, I can't take this no more. I hate this show. They cannot do my goat like this. I need more episodes. The stages of watching One Piece. I'm convinced that this is a canon event for like 99% of One Piece fans, including me, because putting all the bias that I have now aside, being caught up with the series, I for sure was highly, and I mean highly, skeptical of ever loving the show. Notice how I said loving, because I would say that I liked One Piece from the start. It doesn't take long for me to like an anime, but there's a big difference between liking something and loving something. In order for me to love a show, it has to give me some sort of bond or connection that will stick with me throughout my whole life. We live every day, but do we really remember every single event that took place when we were born? Absolutely not, right? But for every person, there are key core memories that may have taken place decades ago, but they're still installed into our long-term memory and our heart. This is the type of bond that I need to have with an anime for it to really solidify itself in the GOAT status for me. And before starting One Piece, I never would have imagined that the bond this show has created for me would have grown to such an extent, placing itself in my Hall of Fame for any sort of fiction. In this video, I'm going to be describing the key stages throughout my One Piece journey that made me fall in love with the series. And I am curious to see how many people will resonate with this video, so let me know how you got hooked to One Piece in the comments down below. Now let's talk about the first stage, the skepticism stage. Let's be honest, if you knew nothing about One Piece and you were told to start by a friend, you get a bit curious, so you search it up on Google, cause why not? And then you see this. I mean, what are we talking about? For a first impression, like, bro just looks goofy. This is how I started out, okay? I hated the art style on first glance. There was no way I was watching 1,000+ episodes of this goofball, so I put it off for a good 5 months until my friend kept pestering me about how peaked that the show was. He was about 500 episodes in at the time, and the only thing he could talk about was this dang show. So I said, you know what, screw it, and I turned on episode 1, because this show really can't be this good. So I went in with a boatload of skepticism. I didn't start watching because I wanted to enjoy the story. I just started because my friend wouldn't shut up, and I had to really test the waters. My skepticism at its absolute peak. The first episode, not bad. I thought it was a bit cringe, but still, not bad. The next couple of episodes I pushed through, and to be honest, I wanted to drop it very badly. You see, I just came off watching Naruto and Death Note, and One Piece was the third ever anime I was starting. Looking back on it now, I realized I was an absolute madman. I mean, who starts their anime journey with 2 out of the big 3? I was crazy for not starting off with like Attack on Titan or something. And I hate to admit it, but One Piece's start compared to Naruto's was incredibly slow. 7 episodes into Naruto, I was watching Kakashi whip out his Sharingan and fight Zabuza, while Luffy was fighting this literal clown. So I forced myself through Orange Town, Drum Island, and I was really about to quit, but my friend didn't let me. And honestly, that might have been the most clutch save in my life. Shout out to my friend. If I'd quit there, I would not have experienced Baratie. And boy, oh boy, believe me when I say this, this is the arc that changed absolutely everything for me. And this is where I entered stage 2, my first oh shit moment. So far, the show definitely had its fair share of good moments, but nothing that really shook me to my core yet. The closest the show had gotten this far was when Shanks lost his arm, but that was all the way back in episode 4. We entered the Baratie and meet the charming cook Sanji. My favorite character at that point was Usopp because I related to the man, but I still hadn't found a character that I knew would sell me to keep watching the show. In the first few scenes I met Sanji, I had a feeling that he could become my new favorite. I just knew there was something special about him. Before we even got to the peak of the arc, we had our first real moment where I felt Zoro's character growing on me. When he lost to Mihawk and swore to Luffy he would never lose again, I felt like he was truly a part of the crew. And this is the first time I felt the true strength of One Piece. I began to realize that One Piece wasn't about fights, edgy moments, or aura farming. It It was an adventure, a grand old journey which I had never experienced to the fullest in any show before. And looking back on it now, I can see why Naruto and Bleach inspire a lot of shows, while no show can really be inspired by One Piece. Zoro's moment gave me a true feeling of, oh, I'm gonna be in for a ride, especially seeing the insane gap he had to fill in order to reach Mihawk. I found myself starting to root for my main cast more and more. I felt like I was slowly converting, I was slowly becoming a crewmate, and to me that means everything, since the greatest way for a show to stick with me is to make it personal and relatable. I was getting the breadcrumbs of how good the show could be, and it was enough to keep me waiting for the full meal. Now we have to talk about the peak of this arc for me, where everything changed. Sanji's backstory. I thought the Zoro stuff was gonna hook me, but this, yeah, this was my true first oh shit moment in the whole show. It solidified Sanji as my favorite character. Seeing his struggle hit so much harder after seeing how he presents himself as a cocky, flirtatious cook who just seemed to always be cracking jokes, and he didn't really care about his mates around him. I thought he was a cool character, but his tragic past and the torture that he endured, being starved for 85 days. Bro, that is crazy. Seeing the dreams that he fought for, the sacrifices he was willing to make, it shook me to my absolute core, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I literally remember taking a break after watching the sequence and going onto YouTube to watch reactions to this backstory. I wasn't in the skepticism stage anymore. I was truly hooked, and I knew it because I cared enough to watch other people react to these episodes that I had just watched, and I think I was just starting to understand why my friend wanted me to start so badly. He wanted to see me take joy in watching the show. It was the same as me going to YouTube and watching other people react, and from this point on, I entered the binging stage. Arlong Park was right up after Baratier, and the momentum literally just didn't stop. I think most people realized whether they're hooked to the series during this arc, but for me, it was a bit earlier with Baratier. Nami's backstory in the walk to Arlong Park was the second time that the story had really shook me. I'd always been searching for these pivotal moments that would stay in my memory forever and essentially become a part of my soul. Moments like Naruto's first Nine Tails transformation and Zabuza Haku's death. I'd finally got these impactful moments in One Piece, and it was all up from here. I couldn't stop myself from watching at least 20 episodes a day. This was during COVID, so I watched the show while I was in online school. My friend would have to call me and tell me to get off of the Google Meet because I would accidentally stay on there for too long, being busy, being immersed in my episode. I would mount up the phone in front of me so I could watch while walking in the treadmill. I would watch it before I slept, and I would only stop when my eyes were on the brink of exploding. I definitely do not recommend this insane level of binging, and I wish I hadn't been such a no-life, but some part of me knows that it's a canon event for all One Piece fans, and it's one of the few times that I've binged a show that hard. So at the end of the day, I get happy when I think of those memories and those vibes that I got from those precious times. This part of One Piece truly helped me out as a person. Pre-time skip vibe was just immaculate. I mean, absolute perfection. I get so nostalgic when I think about it, and it honestly made such an impact on my life. I tried to be more carefree like Luffy, stoic like Zoro, compassionate like Nami, creative like Usopp, and tried to value myself more because of Sanji. Alabasta was peak, Skypiea was mythical, the Water 7 Enies Lobby Saga was peak, Thriller Bark was bizarre, and Sabaody, don't even get me started on that. It was the beginning to an unforgettable saga. The show became a whole lot darker as I learned about the horrors of the world government and the celestial dragons. I started to question the shonen elements in the show, and I started to realize more of the seinen elements. Corruption in the Marines became a more highlighted theme, and this was the arc that I truly started to resent the world government, and I wanted to learn the true history about the world after meeting Rayleigh, and the world just suddenly seemed to expand. And so far, I was only interested in the crew's journey, and I never thought I'd be so invested with the whole world. This arc was also the first time I truly experienced loss in the show, as all the strats are forcefully separated, and this all leads into Amazon Lily Impel Down the Marineford saga, where I experienced an absolutely unforgettable event engraved in the hearts of all One Piece fans: Ace's death. You see, my only real issue with this story thus far were some pacing issues and the lack of depth. Sometimes it didn't feel like the stakes were there, and ever since the Pell fake out, I thought there was no way that Oda had it in him to kill off anyone important. If he couldn't even kill off Pell, there wasn't a single inch in my mind where I thought Ace would die, especially seeing everything that Luffy went through to get to him ever since Amazon Lily and even freeing him of his cuffs. I still think that it's Oda's single-handedly greatest writing decision to kill him off here. Absolute peak storytelling. This combined with the ASL flashback would produce more memories that would literally engrave themselves into my soul. I was feeling the same things as my friend ended when he was around the 500 episode mark, and this is where it really started to dawn on me that I was basically halfway done with the show. So I continued my binge into the new world and entered the third stage, the rebirth stage. Coming off of Marineford with all of its chaos, loss, and everything else, I was quite curious how the Straw Hats were going to bounce back after the time skip. At this point, the crew had felt like my real family, so I was eager to see them reunite, and the Straw Hats showing off their growth for the first time since getting separated, it made me feel like a proud father, man. Even though I didn't have any kids and I was like 16 years old, the whole period from Return to Saboti, Fishman Island, and Punk Hazard was all about the Straw Hats being reborn. I didn't care much for Caribou, Horty Jones, or Caesar Clown. There was always this void in my heart when the Straw Hats were separated. Their chemistry, everything was just lost. Something just didn't feel right when they were gone. But seeing them show off in these arcs gave me a sense of hope, and the void was filled. My main characters were back better than ever. My goat Sanji was back, and I realized that I wasn't watching One Piece to see Luffy become the king of the pirates. You know, deep down, I always knew that he's gonna achieve his goal somehow, but I just cared more about spending time with the characters. And this is where I might disagree with a lot of people when it comes to the show's pacing. Sure, the pacing does get horrendous at a lot of points, and I can totally see why people think it's a huge issue, and objectively, it is a big issue. But for me, it really wasn't that bad, because at this point, I was just so invested with the world, the characters, the history, that the longer screen time that they actually had, it kept strengthening the personal connection that I had to the show and the characters. So for me, the bad pacing might have actually been a blessing in disguise, but I do agree, it got real bad sometimes. I was getting a little annoyed, and I do want to add a mini stage into the rebirth stage because I feel like the two kind of overlap. I call this the lore stage. I'd always been interested in One Piece's lore in the world, and I definitely felt that it was getting its real spotlight within the Fishman Island, Punk Hazard saga, or overall just all of post-time skip. Pre-time skip got me to love the characters, while post-time skip got me hooked into the world building, and I mean hooked. I found myself trying to craft up theories while watching theorists on YouTube. It was the start to my real lore piece saga. I got heavily involved with the community during this time and just felt like I would ascend while learning more about Joy Boy, ancient weapons, the Void history, and God knows what else is out there. I have to be honest though, the start of post-time skip was missing just a little bit of pop that I was used to from the show. So even though I was interested in the world, my binge did slow down a little, and this is until I reached the next stage, Dofi Greatness. Now I know that the name of this stage seems heavily biased, and that's because it absolutely is. For me, a great villain in a show is absolutely able to carry everything, and I mean everything. Aizen, Obito, just some of my favorites can make or break a story for me, and Don Quixote do Flamingo was a godsend for me in this part of my journey. I was just starting to lose spark in the story, and this goat shows up. I didn't care about the pacing issues because Dressrosa as a whole was the arc that truly hooked me back into the show and gave me the same feelings as I'd gotten during my Summit War binge. This is a short stage because it only goes over my feelings of Dressrosa, so let's move on to the next one, the emotion piece stage. Look, One Piece is emotional, easily one of the greatest strengths of the show, but getting past Zoe and watching Whole Cake Island is one of the best experiences of my life. Sanji had always been my favorite character. I won't even lie, I was a little annoyed seeing how he was getting treated post-time skip, but I still stuck with him. I still believed in my boy, and this saga absolutely revolutionized him for me. Whole Cake is probably my favorite arc in the show, which I feel like is a really hot take, but I don't care because it's the arc that made me feel the most gut-wrenching emotions that I've ever felt watching fiction before. Sanji's second backstory resonated with me so heavily. Him being the outcast, his father disowning him, it reminded me a lot about my personal life. Sanji didn't just feel like my favorite character anymore. It felt like I was looking at a version of myself turned to the absolute extreme. I learned to value myself and my life more. Sanji was always self-sacrificial. He would do anything for his crew, often belittling his own self-worth. I was the same. I would do anything for my friends, and I usually wouldn't think that highly of myself. I just thought if everyone I cared about was okay, everything would be alright. But this arc changed me as a person, instilling into me the self-worth that I thought I'd forgotten about, and this is why I think Sanji will never fall off from being my number one character in the show. And now we move on to the roof piece stage. Now I'm not just talking about being on the roof of Wano when I talk about this stage, okay? This is it. Getting to this point of the story literally means that you have made it to what Oda has been building up for years. You're at the top. Wano dumps you with insane lore, Gear 5, some of the lows were real low, I can acknowledge that, and that's for another video, but overall I still liked Wano at the end of the day. I caught up to the show during the Black Maria Robin fight. I had actually caught up. It took a year, but it was a year filled with twists and turns concerns, emotions, memories that I'll never forget. It was during this time where I got introduced into Agenda Piece, which will definitely be getting dedicated videos, trust me. I still stand by the fact that Agenda Piece is the greatest thing to ever come out of an anime fandom. In a sense, it got me more involved with the story and it gave me a feeling of nourishment. I could just take a deep breath and reflect over the year. I finally caught up to the point where I can actually understand these agendas and get involved with the community, even creating my own agendas. You just can't stop thinking to yourself, oh my god, how far I've come. And this is where you start to tear up and remember the itty bitty version of yourself who was in the skepticism stage. Why would I ever start this show? All my past memories flooded to the front of my head during this stage, and I left off with a bittersweet feeling. What now? I'm really caught up. What do I do next? Thus presenting the final stage of the video, the break week stage. I'd never read a manga chapter before One Piece, okay? But I just needed to know more about the story, so I prepared myself. I made sure to read from right to left. I started reading the manga where I left off in the anime. Now, it was definitely an experience, I'll tell you that. I was reading the wrong areas. I wasn't used to everything being black and white, but I still enjoyed it nevertheless. Each chapter I read, in fact, it spiked my enjoyment level to a new high. Holy crap, I realized reading the manga is actually peak. I read more, read even more. I kept flipping the pages until, wait, what? What does this say? But, break week? Next week? Break week? Wait, what do you mean? What's a break week? I'm just go to the next chapter. Okay, let's ignore that. And I clicked the arrow, but nothing popped up. Could this mean I was actually caught up to the manga and I had to wait 2 weeks for a new chapter? What? It officially was over. I'd fully caught up. Nowhere else to continue the story. The anime, which I thought had too many episodes, seemed to suddenly not have enough. I needed more. I needed my daily dopamine rush, but I had no choice but to wait. And that's how I ended up waiting week to week for a new chapter, joining millions of other One Piece fans' suffering. It was suffering, but it fulfilled me. One Piece is way too short.